Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Army, Navy and Air Spirits can play a very important role in HOI4, yet I've never covered them in a dedicated guide. Until now. Today we'll take a look at the best overall choices, how doctrines and ideologies impact our picks, and how to adapt them to any situation. If that sounds interesting, you're in the right place. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask in the comments and make sure to join our Discord to meet our amazing community. And as always guys, if you enjoy the content I make, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing and leaving a comment. That being said, let's get started. For today's comparison, we're going to use a couple of tools. Of course, we're going to check out the various spirits in-game, but since not all of them are available to all countries, ideologies and doctrines, we're going to use this dedicated document I made specifically for this guide, which includes all of the best picks for all spirits. This is also shared, of course, with tier 2 members of the channel in the usual shared folder. In addition to this, we're going to use the official wiki to give a look at the various spirits and traits. Traits are not the main topic of this video, but we're going to mention some of them. I will need to make a dedicated guide for the best traits on generals and admirals, of course. So let's start with the spirits, and let's start right in the game with the first choice. So for the army spirits and the spirit of the academy, what are we going to pick? Well, by default, I would say that the best pick in here is bold attack. Why is it bold attack? Because a 50% chance of +1 attack on level up can be huge. It is a bit RNG dependent, true, but attack is the most reliable of the stats you can get in here. So the alternatives, similar alternatives, are these two. With this one you get +1 defense. Though defense gives you some breakthrough, it's not the best choice. This one gives you planning and logistics. It can be an interesting choice, because if we check out our generals, you can see how planning increases the max planning and planning speed, and logistics decreases the supply consumption, so very useful and important stats. However, while planning only works if you achieve the max planning, and supply consumption only really applies when you lack supplies, attack is something that is just always valid in all scenarios, so it is the best set and forget pick for us. Another question you may have in here is why don't we go for best of the best and get higher level leaders? Now, an alternative option in here, let me show it from here, would be Academy Scholarships. It's very similar, it's like the communist version, so you get higher level new army leaders. And the reason we don't go for these two is that higher level generals reduce the chances to get those extra stats we talked about before. So as long as you are building your generals and you're creating them from low level, well then these options are better. There is something else worth mentioning in here, however, but it is not available with superior firepower. So first of all, let's change our doctrine to a Grand Battle Plan, as once we do that, in here we have available theater training. Now this is a very good spirit because it gives you that +20% terrain traits XP gain. So if we go again on our general, the terrain traits are these ones. And if you want to farm some specific ones, for example, Hill Fighter, Mountain Fighter can be very, very good. You can do that. It's way less set and forget, because this means you're building your generals, grinding specific terrain traits with a plan in mind. If you just want something that is always valuable, then bold attack is your pick. Theater training if you want to build your generals. In addition to the terrain experience, you also have a 50% chance on new officers to get Brilliant Strategist or Inflexible Strategist. Let's go and check them out. These traits here, Brilliant Strategist and Inflexible Strategist, both very, very good. Brilliant Strategist being better, but very good traits here. So with theater training, you can get some very good generals. Now, another one that I want to mention in here is political loyalty. This is only available if you're fascist or non-aligned, and what it does, in addition to the military leader cost, is it boosts the party stability modifier by 10%. So this can be a good choice when you start with already high-level generals. Germany is a good example of that, and with good ruling party popularity, as this can significantly boost your stability. Particularly good earlier in the run, this is a pick that I often go for in many of my guides. Worth mentioning, however, that this is quite bad if you create new generals, as both politically connected and media personality are pretty bad traits. can see media personality in here, politically connected in here. Okay, let's move on to the next, the spirit of the army. What do we go for here? Well, there is only one pick that is absolutely always the best, and that is Relief of Command. Plus 25 army experience gain is absolutely crazy, so this is clearly the best possible spirit. The army advisor cost is also pretty nice, so always this one. Well, except this is unique to democracy, so if you're not a democracy, this is not available. So what do you pick when you're not a democracy? Now here I want to highlight a pick that may not be very popular, but in my opinion is highly underrated, and that is Quick Improvisation. I really like this one because you get some extra planning speed. You know, max planning is more important than planning speed, but planning speed is very good to get some value out of your planning, even when you don't stop your units for as long or that frequently. So planning speed is nice, but the key point of this spirit is the commander ability cost discount by 20%. So that means that these commander abilities here will be cheaper to use, and you should use them because these abilities are very good. Now, what other options do we have in here? We have these specific ones for Grand Battle Plan, Mobile Warfare, and Superior Firepower, Mass Assault. Then we have a couple of honorable mentions that I will talk about in a bit. Let's start with Tip of the Spear. Tip of the Spear is a very good choice for several countries, especially early game. And that's mainly because it increases the Special Forces cap. Now, if you don't want to cheese and abuse the Special Forces cap, this is one of the few reliable ways you have to get extra Mountaineers or other Special Forces, but I usually go for Mountaineers, on the field early in the run. For example, I use these as India in one of my recent guides. India starts in a very tough spot. With Tip of the Spear, you can afford to deploy some pure Mountaineers divisions, which can carry you in this area, in this region in particular. So a very solid choice and one of my favorite picks. Now, to talk about the other ones, let's use the wiki here. So Overwhelming Firepower, it gives you a discount on artillery design. It can save you some army experience when designing your templates. You also get a bit more experience from artillery. Overall, in my opinion, not really a good choice, not really a good pick most of the time. Same, if not even worse, for Bayonet Strength, yes. The extra experience gain can be nice, but overall, not much going for it. Motorization Drive, on the other hand, when going for Mobile Warfare and obviously going for tanks, otherwise you wouldn't be going for Mobile Warfare, can save you a lot of army experience. When you design your new template, you will need to add all of the motorized or mechanized and the tank divisions. That can cost way more than 100 army experience, and with Motorization Drive, that can turn into 0 as you get a minus 100% cost. The only thing is, the further you go in the game, the less value you get out of the spirit, as once you made your templates, you basically get nothing more from it. And now for the honorable mentions. There are a couple of them. One of them we can check in the game, and it is a proper heritage. Now, it doesn't look like amazing. The leader experience gain is okay-ish, and the supply combat penalties on core territory, minus 20% is great, but you don't usually fight on core territory that much. Well, if you don't, then it's useless, so don't go for it. But when you do, and I will give you a very good example, Communist China, or any of the other Chinese factions in here. I will use Communist China as an example because I recently made a guide for them. So as Communist China, you expand in this area of China, then you fight China, then you fight Japan to kick them off the mainland of China. Most of the run you play on core territory, as all of this is also considered the core of China. So with this single spirit, you get a minus 20% penalty for the lack of supplies in all of these areas, which are known for the lack of supplies. So it becomes an absolutely fantastic pick. For the last one, let's go back to the wiki, as we are not communist here, and that's the Magic Portrait of Marx. With the Magic Portrait of Marx, you get weekly manpower plus 500. Now that may not seem much, but 500 weekly manpower, especially when playing as a minor, can be absolutely vital. So when playing as small minors with little chances to succeed and very limited manpower, if you can flip communist, if you don't start as communist, well then this single spirit can save your run and give you a chance at succeeding. Okay, let's move on to the last group here. So the Spirit of Division Command, what do we go for here? And in my opinion here there is a clear best choice, which is the Logistical Focus. This is my favorite pick, but this one is tied to Grand Battle Plan, so you need to be on Grand Battle Plan in order to pick this one. Why is this one so good? Well, the supply consumption minus 10% is always great. In addition to that, even if you have enough supplies and fighting in rich areas like in Europe, the navy and air fuel consumption reduction can really help countries with little access to oil. So a good example is Germany or Italy, countries with a good fleet or a good air force which struggle with fuel. The other options we have in here, let's check them from the wiki as they are once again doctrine related. And so we have Smoke and Fire with superior firepower. This one is a good pick, you get some extra breakthrough right away, and you also get more chances as preferred tactic for Suppressive Barrage, which is actually a pretty good tactic you unlock with the very first perk of superior firepower. So once again, superior firepower proves to be a very solid early game doctrine as you get something good right away. The very first perk is extra soft attack, it's always good, the first tactic is a good one, and then you can immediately pick the spirit to make the tactic used more frequently and get the extra breakthrough. I'm not as excited about operational reserves, the extra HP okay-ish, but overall not my favorite. While maneuver warfare has a point. If you go for mobile warfare and you go for tanks, well, division speed and coordination are some of the most important stats to have on your tanks, so this one can be indeed very valuable for mobile warfare. Now, once again, we have an honorable mention, and that would be static warfare. Now, this is purely defensive, but defensively, this is amazing. You get the entrenchment speed and you get the 10% extra max entrenchment, which pairs extremely well with the first GBP doctrine. You get plus 10 max entrenchment and another 10% max entrenchment and entrenchment speed. Defensively, you will be in a very, very good spot. The only reason this is not a favorite pick is that you rarely play defensively, especially in single player. Alright boys, and that's all for the army spirits. Let's move on to the navy spirits, a bit easier to cover honestly. So for the very first one, the Spirit of Naval Academy, we have a solid pick in Instilled Aggression. This is very similar to Bold Attack, so basically the same we said before, but this time it applies to admirals. However, in this case, there is another very good pick, only available if you go for Trade Interdiction. The pick being Convoy Warfare. The reason this is a good pick is that it increases the experience gain and a chance to get a Seawolf or Blockade Runner on your admirals. And why is that important? Let's see an admiral here. The reason it's so important is that Blockade Runner is the first step to getting Concealment Expert. Now, visibility reduction is the most important stat on your fleet in general. So this is arguably the best overall trait an admiral can have, and Blockade Runner is the best way to get it. Which makes Convoy Warfare a very solid pick early on, especially if you lock an admiral that already has the trait. Like in the States you start with this one, it's already great, you probably don't need it. But when farming your admirals, this is a very good pick. Let's move on to the next one, the Spirit of the Navy. In here we have several choices, but my default pick, as you always get value out of it, is the Naval Refit Yards. Now, whatever you do in your run, at some point you will need to repair your fleet. And that 15% extra repair speed will make the process faster. So always valuable, always good. Alternative options in here are Naval Reform for the extra naval experience gain. I would say Navy experience is a bit less valuable, so not as useful. That's why it's not my favorite pick, but it can be a valuable one. And Integrated Designers can be a good pick, as you get some extra research speed for ship modules. Now the problem with this one is it's good if you want to rush certain ship modules before your opponents. However, especially in single player, you very rarely heavily invest in the navy, especially in terms of researches. So in the end, the value you get out of these tends to be very limited. Especially if you consider that modules usually have very short research times already, so you don't get that much value out of it. Now, in this case too, we have some alternative situational options. Let's go down here to check them out. So depending on the doctrine you're going for, you get Global Presence, Submarine Primacy and Mobile Force, boosting the research speed respectively of battleships, submarines and carriers. Now, of the three, I would say that Submarines Primacy for Trade Interdiction is the best choice. So if we go back to the game, we have it available here. As researching higher tiers of the submarine hull is probably the most beneficial out of all of them, battleships being the least beneficial, and carriers, they are great, but researching higher tier hulls is usually not required. While for submarines, you often want to rush the tier 4 hull to make them completely undetectable to the eye. Let's move on to the last one, the Spirit of Naval Command. Now in this case, there is only one option that gives you reduced visibility, and that is night fighting, so this would be the best default pick in my opinion. In here there is only one other spirit that I want to mention, so an honorable mention goes to Inclement Weather Experience, as the bad weather penalty reduction by 40% is huge. Now this one is very situational, it really depends on the weather. So let's say in general, if you are lucky enough to fight an opponent without this trait in bad weather, you have a massive advantage, but that's a bit RNG. There are also some sea regions that tend to be more prone to bad weather, in which case if you know that you're going to fight there, well then this can be a great pick. But night fighting is just so solid, always valuable, great pick. And with this we also covered all of the Navy spirits, just the air spirits left, and this one is much faster to cover, less options in general, and very solid ones. So for the default spirit of the Air Force, I would always go for Air Crew Surveys. The reason for this one is that, nice reduction for accident chance, but the most important thing is the air doctrine cost minus 15%, which means faster doctrines, better perks earlier on. You can never go wrong with it. But there is something else in here that is worth mentioning, and that is industry liaisons. Now this one can be good if you're rushing certain airframes, especially if you play as a country that has already good research bonuses. I would tend to say this is more for multiplayer. If you want to research advanced airframes before your opponents, you can do it with this spirit. In single player, you don't usually go past the improved small airframe, for which this particular spirit doesn't help that much, and the faster doctrines are usually more helpful. In any case, this pick is always great, and this one situational, but potentially very good. For the second one, the Spirit of Air Force Command, well, once again we have a default pick that we almost always go for, being a centralized control. The reason centralized control is good is that it is always valuable. You get the fighter detection 10%, always good, and the air mission efficiency that applies to all air missions. So again, generic great value for everything. Now for air spirits too, it's worth mentioning the specific ones that you get depending on the doctrine you go for. So this total devastation, which gives you more strategic bombing. In single player, I would say this is completely useless, but in multiplayer, if you go for a strategic bombing build, well then this can be very useful. The continuous strike, this one can actually be good in single player. If you go for battlefield support, which is likely what you're picking anyway in single player, the air support mission efficiency becomes the most important one, and an extra 25% efficiency is pretty good. Mass strike, honestly, doesn't look that good to me. Air superiority is great, but 5% is not much. Operational integrity is very situational in my opinion. Even in multiplayer, it wouldn't be my favorite pick. And well, at that point, the fighter detection and air mission efficiency in general seems better, so I would probably not pick Mass strike in any case. So guys, let's sum up and get to some conclusions with these key takeaways. So the army defaults would be bold attack in most scenarios, political loyalty, more situational but can be useful to boost your stability, relief of command always when a democracy, quick improvisation as a highly underrated alternative, and logistical focus when going for grand battle plan. The Navy defaults, installed aggression, same as bold attack, always good, naval refit yards, always good value, night fighting, always good value, you can go safe with this combination. And for the air defaults, again you can always go safe with air crew surveys and centralized control. And with that boys, we covered all of the best spirits in the game. As you know, on the channel you can already find the best templates, the best designs, the best doctrines for each category. So we can now add another dedicated guide to the list. I hope this was useful for you. If it was, please do not forget to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving me a comment. Also, let me know what you thought about my picks. Would you do anything different with any of these spirits? Is there anything important you think I forgot? Let me know in the comments your favorite picks and why. Other than that guys, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye bye!